A man who just became a father for the first time and his mate have been found guilty in a court for murder pertaining to the killing of a recent graduate. This was not some kind of feud or love triangle. The facts surrounding this case found that the two men ruined their own lives for involving themselves in a situation that, number one, didn't even concern them, and two, because they poked their nose into a stupid situation that was blown way out of proportion and they got way overzealous. They've ended up killing a recent graduate, and now they've been sentenced to murder Friday just gone. Right now, Aiden Matthews and Joseph Stott are sitting in their cells thinking, what the hell have I done and what's went wrong? It was sheer stupidity on their behalf. So, emergency services were called to Wythenshawe Road on the 6th of June at roughly 6 p.m. due to reports of a serious assault. This was not an assault. It wasn't just punches and kicks. This was a beatdown, a pummeling, a one-sided attack that involved a large metal torch. Okay, so what happened was, recent graduate, 23-year-old David Allan, was walking to his local Tesco on Moorcroft Road when three boys rode at him on their bikes, according to a statement from Greater Manchester Police. This is the initial exploit that set off the unfortunate series of events. Thinking that the boys were too close for comfort, David Allan shoved one of the boys off their bikes, in which he fell. That resulted in a bruised ego, of course, or hurt pride. The boys rode off and David Allan continued to Tesco. During the course of David Allan's continued trip to Tesco, the boy's mum apparently drove to Tesco to confront him, since it was an idiot move on David Allan's part. However, it did not, in no shape or form, warrant a death sentence. Words were exchanged between the boy's mum and David Allan, further exasperating the situation that could have been blown over if one, graduate David Allan, didn't shove the boy off his bike in the first place, or two, if David Allan just apologised, instead of thinking he had the right to take matters into his own hands and put hands on a child. According to police statements, after words were exchanged between Allan and the boy's mum, the mother shouted to a van that was across the street, and cue Matthews. Now, David Allan and Aiden Matthews argue and the fight ensues. After their fight, 31-year-old Aiden Matthews then drove off, and at some point he decided that the situation wasn't over. What he did then was decide to fetch his mate, Joseph Stott, who had just become a dad to a baby girl for the first time. The police statement then goes on to say that Matthew picked up Stott, drove at speed to reconvene with David Allan and have it out of him for the second time. This time there was no warning. So Greater Manchester Police says that Matthews and new dad Stott immediately jumped out of the van and grabbed David Allan immediately, knocking him off his feet. Armed with a large metal torch, Matthews hit Aiden with the weapon in quick succession while Stott kicked and punched him. Again, this wasn't an attack, this was a literal beatdown. Once David Allan was incapacitated and no longer moving, the duo got back into the van and sped away. The adrenaline coursing through their veins so much so that the endorphins caused them to crash during the escape, the court heard. Both men tried to hide evidence by burning their clothes they wore on the day of the attack, and even getting rid of the murder weapon. David Allan was rushed to hospital for his serious injuries. His condition was categorised as critical, where medics battled to save his life, but he died 24 hours later. Murder charge. 34-year-old Joseph Stott and 31-year-old Aiden Matthews were quickly arrested, and on Friday the duo was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum of 16 and 18 years respectively. I told you the situation was blown way out of proportion. So many parties in this incident are to blame. Number one, David Allan, for one, pushing the boy off his bike. When you take into consideration that the boy had not crashed into David Allan just didn't like how close the boy and his friends were approaching him at speed. But it's what kids do, they don't know any better. The boy's mum is to blame, not for confronting Allan, because she had every right to do that. But what the mother did wrong was get Aiden Matthews involved in a situation that turned him into a murderer, all out of allegiance to the woman, or for some capacity of trying to be a superhero. And lastly, the duo are to blame for escalating the situation to the point of no return. Aiden Matthews had already fought David Allan, and because he didn't feel satisfied with the result, or the fact that he wanted to execute more violence, he recruited his mate, who was a new father, and went hunting for Allan, and when they found him, they killed him, whether it was intended or not. The fact is, a person lost their life. Senior Investigating Officer Duncan Thorpe from the Major Incident Team says this was a horrific attack that escalated from a petty argument and has left the family utterly devastated. David was attacked in broad daylight and left for dead. Scott and Matthews tried to hide their tracks and get away, but the large quantity of evidence our officers uncovered has left them to face justice. David still had his entire life ahead of him, and our thoughts remain with his family. All I can say is, again, the situation was blown way out of proportion. This is why people need to think about what they do before they do it. Condolences to David Allan's family. Safe.